of the new drilling sim. Try to get my tongue right. Drilling simulator. Go off to you, Phil, for 10 minutes.
Okay. First of all, thanks for allowing RGU to present today. It'll give you an overview of what we're planning up here in Aberdeen. Again, I'll try and share my screen with you. It should be, well, I've got my presenting teams. Can anybody see that?
Not yet.
You can see it? Yeah?
No,
Okay.
I can't see it yet.
No, Phil, we can't see anything yet.
Okay. It says present. How's that?
Have you got a share like neck at the top? Yep, that
Come
looks
in.
like it's doing some.
There we go. All good.
All good?
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, so we managed to secure funding internally through RGU on the geothermal upgrade. We have a drilling simulator here in Aberdeen where we use it for academic drilling activities and supporting the oil and gas industry up here. Now, we have worked with UK partners, Drilling Systems, the manufacturer. They're based at Bournemouth, and Strada, who are based out in Jersey. Now, we are looking to obviously enhance the downhole model. That has now started, and that will be completed by the end of the month. And we're looking to foster collaborations, research opportunities, specifically drilling in hard rock formations. And we want to look at the single mid to deep geothermal well research, where we can drive down 50% of the drilling costs. And that's working with the completion industry to see how far, how deep we can go by drilling a single well. Now, whether that be 1 kilometre down to 8 kilometres, or we can go even deeper down to 10 or 12 kilometres. But it all depends on the technology that's being developed and helping the industry to develop their tools to get to extreme depths. Now, we've done some testing on the surface side of the things. We can basically simulate any geothermal formation data and program that into the simulator and allow the drilling activities to be done on any rig type. Now, whether that be a small truck-based shallow well or up to the largest land rig itself. We're also looking at the converting existing oil and gas wells into geothermal use. That can be either onshore or actually offshore as well. The simulator will be linked to an applied programmable interface where they would have the capabilities for tool design, developing tools, developing different types of other formations that are out there, and actually testing the technologies down in the simulator. It's cost effective, it's a safe environment, and the results are pretty instant. And that data can be used then to either develop the tool or move it on to a concept into a viable project itself. The main aim is to drive the drilling costs down by 50%. We have experience in oil and gas in doing that. The simulator is very accurate. All the bit manufacturers actually come and use this facility to test their bit designs. Like in America, they are probably drilling through nice soft rock formations. That's probably why they've got high ROPs and quick drilling times. But here, like in the UK and certain parts of Europe, we're sitting on hard rock, like granite. So we want to look at drilling through the granite, using different technologies. How fast could we drill through that granite, and the outcomes of actually getting that produced into geothermal energy. The next slide is can you see the next slide? No? Yes? I'm saying Can you see the next slide? No?
Yeah,
Yes?
that's yeah, we
Okay.
can now.
There we go. Okay, so the next step is obviously the upgrade is continuing. It will be in end of the month. We are looking to do some big industry launch probably around about the end of November. We are collaborating with industry, the UK government, Scottish governments, and academic partners like Durham and others. We want to look at testing the simulator first with live well data. One of the industry partners is at Seraphy. They have supplied us with their well data, and we will look to program that well data in the next few weeks for them. The research and the tool technology development, as I explained before, that can be used through the API link, and that is open for research, PhD programs, projects, other academia projects that they can access the API to develop new variables for different tools, that type of thing. It will obviously provide training for geothermal. Geothermal is completely different to oil and gas. There's different risks, but there's no mechanism for sort of training in that aspect. So the simulator could be used for training programs, and we will develop programs for upskilling the workforce for transitioning from other renewables or from oil and gas into the geothermal side of things. And basically, the whole idea is to prove that geothermal is a sustainable, long-lasting energy source to the UK, and how we can prove and drive down the costs, because we can actually prove real concepts where we can drill the well first before it's actually drilled for real. So we'll be able to predict how fast it will drill, how much it will cost, how deep do you need to go for that particular installment, and what sort of heat it will produce as well. That's me.
Phil, thank you very much indeed. That's wonderful timing. No specific questions have come in. I think you'll find that Utah are drilling into hard rock. Tim and Caroline would know a bit more. I think that talk complements very nicely what we heard from Caroline in the first presentation today. And so I'm going to move on now to having drilled imaginatively, as it were, into the rocks of the UK. We've now got Dr. Alison Moynihan, Head of Geothermal at the BGS, who will tell us all about the holes which do exist, and therefore something of the UK geothermal platform. Over to you, Alison, and lovely to have you present today.
Great, thanks, John. I'll just try and share. Okay, sharing is paused. I'll try that again. Okay, can you see that now?
Yeah, we've got that now, Alison. It's not yet in slideshow mode, but yeah. Thank you.
Okay, there we go. Okay, so the questions earlier about geothermal in the UK and so on. So one of the things that when you look around countries in Europe and wider that have made more strides in terms of their installed geothermal capacity, one of the things they have amongst many other things is an interactive GIS type platform where all the national scale geothermal data sets are reside and where information can be taken. So that's what I'm going to talk about today, because now in the UK we have one, which is brilliant. So I'm just going to try and minimize that and move on. Okay, so the UK geothermal platform has been launched in August this year, so just in the summer. So it's a new thing that is available for UK data and information. It's freely available. Hopefully you got the web address from the previous slide. It draws together many different types of information, and it has a number of different parts. There's an overview website. There is a part of it about data access, so very much about searching data sets, about metadata. So that's the information that describes the data and its terms of use and so on. And there's also some videos about how to use the Map Explorer part of the UK Geothermal platform, which is what you can see on the right-hand side of this slide. So this is a version 1. It's a start and it's a step forward. We know that from the stakeholder engagement we did during this project that different users have different requirements and more data sets and so on. So please view this as a start, but we have managed to collect together about 90 different geoscientific related data sets in the Map Explorer part of the platform. It includes some legacy data sets and existing data sets from the Geological Survey, but also draws in a number of other digital data sets from the Environment Agency, Scottish Environment Protection Agency, and so on, as well as the Mining Remediation Authority, North Sea Transition Authority, and the UK Onshore Geophysical Library. So in that way, it's kind of a hub that draws things together. The work was funded by UK government, by the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero, and it was built and is maintained by the British Geological Survey. So in the first month, we have analytics on the website. So there were over 800 people that actually did something on the website. My colleagues tell me that a lot of people now have tracking blocked. So those numbers are probably about double that. So that's a good start that we hope to build on. And you can see the image on the right-hand side, some of the geothermal information layers that are within the geothermal platform. So what's on the map at the moment is a heat flow hex grid, which gives you heat flow values across the UK, as you can see, and switched on also is the legacy geothermal catalogue, which is the data points where there's downhole temperature data, thermal conductivity data, or heat flow measurements. So it just gives you an indication of the types of data sets that are available within that platform. So who's it for? Well, it's for a range of different people. Inevitably, we can't meet everybody's needs, but there were some really strong drivers around making geothermal information more visible and accessible to policy making in government for reasons that we've discussed earlier in this call, and to local and regional government. And so the platform has opportunity maps and summary layers that I'll talk about shortly, which are more for the non-specialist user, for the planner, the policymaker, and so on. And then it also has, as I've just shown on the previous slide, more detailed data and information that can be accessed. So that's more for the researchers and the developers. So it aims to cover a different sort of range of users. And just some more images to show the types of information that's in there. The kind of grid on the left-hand side is the sort of types of data as arranged, and the map on the right-hand side shows one of the legacy temperature maps. So this is of the Cheshire Basin, the temperature on the Triassic sandstone deep geothermal target, for example. So these are data sets that have been in publicly available reports for many years. This is a data set from 1995, but they were not digitally accessible and available. And now in the interactive map, you can overlay different layers of information, you can zoom in and out and so on. And that information is accessible to people on the kind of geoscientific subsurface aspects of geothermal. What I'm just going to move on to briefly are the summary layers. So these are layers that are produced more for the non-specialist, but will be useful as an initial guidance for more specialist geothermal developers and so on as well. They're very much pre-feasibility screening level information. They cover the whole of Great Britain, so that's 236,000 hectares. It's generalised information on a 1 kilometre sided hexel. You'll see what I mean by that shortly. And really what these summary layers give is a measure of the heat output from different technologies, from different geothermal technologies, based on the variability of the rocks that are beneath our feet in Great Britain. So this is new calculations that have been made, and there are 5 summary layers. There's an overview layer, which also includes some levelised cost information from an allied study that was published by Desnes, that was done by Arup, that was also published at the same time. And then it has 4 layers for different geothermal technologies at the moment: the closed loop and open loop shallow ground source heat, deep geothermal hot sedimentary aquifers for direct use over about 40 or 50 degrees centigrade, and more descriptive data for granite systems. So this slide just shows you how a particular person in a council or a public sector body or something might use the platform. So you can see in blue the kind of hex grid cell, which is how the data is organised, the data and information. And say you have a school which sits within that 1 kilometre sided hex cell. You might have to do your decarbonisation plan. You want to know, can I use geothermal energy here? And so what the summary layers do, the overview layer allows you to click on that and look at the different options for geothermal energy. And so, for example, in this particular location, some of the data that we've got turned on allows you to see that shallow closed loop is likely technically feasible. Open loop might be a possibility, shallow open loop. And there's a possibility of one of the deep hot sedimentary aquifers in this location. There's also the kind of brown layers behind the other layers. Those are the mine water opportunity maps from the Mining Remediation Authority. So there's also information there about the presence or absence of mine workings, and the maps are integrated within that. So as a user, you might think, okay, now I've got some information that will tell me a bit about whether geothermal is a possibility in any location. And then you might want to go deeper, so you go to one of the more detailed summary layers. So I'm just going to show the example of the closed loop ground source heat pump layer. And this is the type of information you get back for any place in the UK. You get the amount of heat that you get from one borehole, in this case for closed loop, an array of 50 boreholes, based on a particular well design that is specified in a very detailed report. And it gives you some idea of the sort of technical feasibility and confidence of that. And it gives you some idea of the variability within that particular geology for the kind of heat output at that location. So as I mentioned, there are videos on how to use this on the website, and there is a very detailed report that explains all the calculations that went into this. I've just included some images here. So again, just to reiterate, these are pre-feasibility level summary calculations that apply to the whole UK, and they are also then useful for regional energy planning, city scale energy planning, and so on, in terms of including geothermal. And these are just some more images from the report to show you how some of the deeper geothermal aspects are included within those summary layer calculations. So that was version 1, and hopefully I would like your feedback, but I would hope that that's a really big step forward in terms of geothermal data and information availability and accessibility for the UK. Before we'd even finished, we were thinking about version 2 because there's so much more to do. So some of the things around version 2 that I just got on this slide that we're thinking about, obviously we want to get feedback from people to improve what we've done. People have mentioned including constraints layers. We've got a long list of potential other data sets that can be included, or technology types. We would really like to improve the underpinning legacy models by updating with more recent exploration and operational information. And we want to include also locations where there are existing larger scale geothermal schemes, which relate to kind of the UK's country statistics to show that things are actually moving, that things are happening, that there are pre-feasibility studies happening, there are installed schemes happening. So hopefully that gives you a very brief overview of the UK geothermal platform. And please do have a go and come back to us with comments or questions, because that will help us justify funding to improve it in the future. Thank you.
Alison, thank you so much indeed. It's clearly come on a huge jump since I last saw it. That's absolutely fantastic. And there were a number of clapping, if you saw them, little wee clapping hands coming up there. We move now on to the wonderful Anne Morell, who's been leading on the bringing folk together to ensure we've got a coherent community working on geothermal in the UK. And would you like to bring us up to date with your 10 minutes worth?
Great, and another very hard act to follow with Alison there. Thanks, Alison. Can you see my slides?
We can.
Okay, great, thank you. Yes, thanks, John, and particular thanks to Lizzie and your team for bringing together this meeting today. It's so exciting to see what's happening in geothermal, and this quarterly task force is a great summary. So thank you. And as you said at the beginning, Lizzie, we have many new members of Geothermal UK seeing the presentations today. So thanks for this great platform. Geothermal UK. 3 months ago at the task force, I presented very briefly what Geothermal UK is and what we are doing. We are an industry coalition working together to accelerate UK geothermal. We've heard from all the presentations, I think, up to now, the issues that we're facing. We need policy, we need to unlock investment, we need to raise awareness. And we, as the industry collaboration, are working to do exactly that, to address the problems that we see across the geothermal industry or the geothermal sector in the UK. We kicked off in February, as I explained last time, and at the start of October, we already had over 50 companies involved in Geothermal UK and 40 individuals. If you look at our website, you can see the companies, the individuals involved, and we're governed by a charter, which you're very welcome to join us in Geothermal UK. Now, last time I gave a quick overview of the 4 work streams, but one of them in particular has been very exciting recently. I want to give you a bit more detail about that. That's our industry government working groups. Just after the task force last time, we had our first industry government round table, and at that we sat together, players from industry and government. There were nearly 20 government bodies represented at that meeting. We sat together and said, what can we usefully do together to push geothermal forward, make geothermal happen? We had our second workshop just last week, and we had 40 people in the first workshop. It was already double in the second workshop. And this, working closely with DESNZ to define these work streams, this brought people together to start the work that we have defined. The aims of the industry government working group is, of course, to drive policy, to find solutions to these issues that we've been talking about today, and particularly to provide a forum for action for lots of different stakeholder groups who are involved and who are necessary to make geothermal happen. You can see here, of course, industry and government, that was the basis of this group, but people from the energy systems, from academia. We had friends, some of the friends who are here on the call today, down from Aberdeen and RGU, also from Exeter. We had the regulators there with the EA and NSTA and the British Standards Institution, for example. Experts, particularly in AI and tech, but also a lot of infrastructure players. Obviously, once we've got the geothermal out of the ground, it needs to get into infrastructure. So we had a lot of utilities and district heat construction companies and general construction companies, all sitting together, these 80 people, to kick off some work streams to make geothermal happen. Now, after our first meeting, which was a bit more of a brainstorming, I sat down with Sarah and Jenny, who are both on this call from DESNZ, and we worked out which 5 work streams are particularly relevant for this group. And we started these 5 groups, working groups. The first one, actually, we were talking, Tim, when you were talking about your KPIs, talking about how we express the geothermal opportunity, the size of the prize, we've never really been able to do that in a compelling way. So that's our first group. The second one, again, we've been talking about it, and it's been a challenge brought up in another one, is to do with the business model. Actually, this group is led by Jordan Wedderpool from Arup, building on the levelized cost information that we already have and working to find financial public and private mechanisms to kick off geothermal investment. The third one, working very closely with the team from BGS, the Energy Systems Catapult, working on the technical data, also bringing in some of this private sector AI expertise on how we can leverage the fantastic data that we just saw from Alison, bringing it together with some of the surface data, offtake data, whatever. The fourth working group, regulatory and delivery frameworks. I've already mentioned some of the players in that with the Environment Agency and SEPA, and also, of course, the members of the insurance industry coming together to help us create the frameworks which help us mitigate risk, manage geothermal projects. And the fifth one, again, I've mentioned some of those infrastructure players who are there. I believe there are quite a few people here in the group from local authorities. At the moment, we're very keen to get people from local authorities involved in these working groups going forward. So please get in touch if you'd like to help us in this work. So these are the 5 working groups. What have I got next? Oh yes, the organisation of the working groups is at the end of last Monday, when we had our meeting, we came up with an 18-month work plan. This 18-month work plan is in 6 chunks. We have a very defined outcome from each of the working groups, and we have tasks and milestones and responsibilities through this 18-month period to ensure that we do what we need to do, which, as I said before, is to drive policy, but also create solutions for the issues that we've been facing. We'll have 6 monthly in-person workshops. The next one is back with CMS, who were our hosts at the first time, in April. As I said, everybody left that room last Monday with homework. So all the people from all these different stakeholder groups are participating and delivering so that we can make sure that this time we really make it count and have impact. Each group has an industry chair. I mentioned Arup is leading the second group, or Jordan from Arup is leading the second group. We have the Eden Geothermal actually is leading our first group, the size of the prize. The third group is Rebecca Nye from Innovate AI, who you may know as the treasurer of Wing. She obviously with a very strong tech background, and it also involves our friends from Imrand from up in Aberdeen in that group. The fourth group is led by Helen Reeves from Jacobs, bringing together our regulators and insurance frameworks, as I said before. And the fifth group is led by the fantastic Helena Rivers from ACOM, obviously bringing in her expertise and leading that group. And very interestingly, and also defined with Sarah and Jenny, as I mentioned before, each group has a government liaison responsible. And this is really important to make sure that what we're doing is on target to drive the policy that we need to drive. And also it's the responsibility of this person to socialise what the results within government, make sure what we're doing lands on the desk and is shared with the correct people within government. So this,
just 1 minute, please, left.
1 minute. All right. I'm sorry. Okay. So very quickly, it'd be great to have you involved, particularly local authorities. But if you would like to get involved, get in touch. You can sign up for Geothermal UK, or you can contact me. My email address is coming up, Ella. The next big thing is, we have various events coming up. We have an MP breakfast actually in Westminster in Portcullis House on the 12th of November. We want to get as many MPs along as possible. We all know that constituency voices, constituency companies or what impacts what MPs do. So please get in touch. I can give you details of the MP breakfast and get your MP to come along on the 12th of November. And we're also working very closely with investors, working with the Bank of England actually on another work stream, but we have quite a high profile roundtable coming up, co-hosted with PwC, with National Wealth Fund and private investors, as well as the industry. So we have some resources. We did some webinars over the summer. Get in touch again if you would like a copy of these webinars, including input from Sanjeev Kumar from EJEC on what's happening in Europe and how he recommends that we really give power to the geothermal industry here. But get in touch with, that's on our YouTube channel. I can give you details of that. And we have a monthly newsletter so that you can find out information of the community and how you can get involved.
I'm going to draw to a close there, and if I may, absolutely phenomenal progress, and congratulations. Sorry I missed Monday last week, but teaching got in the way. So thanks so much to Anne. I'd now like to introduce, if I may, for the final talk before I do a quick summary, a newfound John Fenton, from FE2, and we'll flip back to technology from the wider policy and engagement picture, if we may. John, lovely to have you join us.
Thank you very much, John, and thank you to the group. I've just been sat here in absolute awe, understanding the wider extent of geothermal networks, which I really hadn't appreciated. So, and thank you for indulging me with the little bit of sort of offline fun. Please don't grab your torch and pitchforks. I'm here to offer an olive branch, and I agree entirely with Tim in relation to the deeper the drilling, the bigger the potential. In other words, the wider the delta between your hot and your cold source, which is ultimately your energy flow potential. So really what I'm going to discuss focuses on maximizing the financial value of your geothermal assets. Cerify were mentioned. We know Carl at Cerify. We've had some interesting chats with him. No idea there was such a broad community. But equally as important as your heat source is your cold source as well. So the bigger the differential between your hot and your cold source, your bigger your potential. In terms of, we've talked about steam generation and drilling deeper and bringing up hotter temperatures. So a steam turbine in a large scale power station typically recovers 60% of the Carnot potential between your hot and your cold source. Incumbent ORC technology, we are advised, is typically 10% of the Carnot potential. At its very best, scaling at sort of power station scale, 15% of the Carnot potential. So I'm today going to introduce the Fenton turbine, if I can share my screen, if it will. So the underlying difference is, so the Fenton turbine, or FE2 as we fondly know it. I'm John Fenton, founder, inventor and CEO of the business. I'm showing you our heat to power website, which is h2p.co.uk. And really what we're doing is we're offering a new opportunity to low temperature assets. In relation to, as we're saying, deep drilling, absolutely fantastic, and the land of opportunity certainly for us and other power generation, but also the people that may be struggling with, a hard bedrock and shallower wells. We're generating electricity from a 25 delta. So from a 40-degree source down to a 50-degree sink, we can turn that into electricity, but also with some really compelling commercial metrics. And we've yet to quote a system at more than 3 years payback. So really, in relation to comparing us to any conventional organic ranking cycle, 95% of the parts in our system are common to any other organic ranking cycle. Our sole differentiator is the turbine. So that is the only fundamental difference between ours and any other. And the how that differs from other technologies is it boasts both an incredibly high volumetric and an incredibly high isentropic efficiency. And the factorization of those two factors seem to be the delineator between achieving low temperatures. So we can do high temperature power generation exactly the same as anybody else. But the key differentiator for us is 60% Carnot efficiency, which is the same efficiency scale that you would have from investing many tens of £1 million in a large scale industrial steam turbine. So really, you know, comparing that to any other conventional organic ranking cycle, it's typically a fourfold advantage in efficiency. And there's an online calculator here. So an example, somebody referenced 10% conversion ratio in the numbers. I think I've yet to be told or yet to find another ORC that can give you 10% conversion ratio from a 100-degree source. But we can happily give you 10% conversion ratio from a 60-degree source. So on here, there's some sliders. You can pull these up and down. It'll give you an indication. So I saw numbers of, you know, sort of 200 degrees and upwards from some of those deep geothermal. Again, as we're saying, your cold sink is as important as your hot sink. So the cooler, we have a client with a large quarry at the side of them. There's a lovely heat sink, and that sits at 4 degrees all year round. So that's a 25% conversion ratio from a 200 degrees geothermal source, and we believe we're unparalleled in that space. I do have a really useful reference case whereby we have a client that had plans to implement a district heat network. Their asset runs 8,000 hours a year, the district heat network 2,000 hours a year. So their heat source is 700 degrees C. They said, can you drop the 700 degrees C down to the 95 for the district heat network? So we produced a viability study, and we can give them they're about a megawatt stream, just under. So we can give them around 150 kilowatts of electricity. But the beautiful thing is the district heat network is then our heat sink. So it's 150 kilowatts of electricity complemented by 850 kilowatts of thermal energy going into your district heat network. But then we said, well, what do you do, you know, for the other 6,000 hours that your asset's running, but your district heat network's not? We're going to throw the energy away. So we quoted them for a second ORC to sit behind the primary, which takes 100 degrees C down to atmospheric. It generates another 150 kilowatts of electricity. So said clients said, I can spend £5.5 million in a 3-year implementation on the district heat network to realise 3.4 pence a kilowatt hour, or I can invest 1.5 million in 2 ORC systems, have it implemented within 9 months, and realise 25 pence a kilowatt hour. So in that specific instance, they've adopted a twin ORC in favour of a district heat network, but also not to this district heat network. We've got some really complementary studies which work well with district heat networks. So at the front end, if you've got an energy from waste or an elevated heat source, we can drop that temperature, deliver your temperature that you need to your heat network, and give you some electricity to run your pumps and your parasitic loads. All return temperatures also seems to be a crippler for district heat networks. So we can take that return temperature before it goes back into the heat generator and drop that and give you some electricity again. So in terms of just really putting it out there, you know, we're a small company, there's less than 20 of us. We're fighting the good fight, like many of you incredible people. It's a gigantic opportunity. So I'm keen to accept help from anyone. You know, we've got a big family of supporters through either spreading the word, or more importantly, if there's any use cases that we can look at for yourselves, and maybe either offer something complementary to a district heat network, or even as a bridging system, you know, through a 3 or a 5 year plan to implement a district heat network and give you some revenue in between. And ironically, running the same machine backwards also does exactly the same in the heat pump space. So I'm sort of timing myself, thinking I've got about 30 seconds left, John. So that's where I'm.
Yeah, you have.
So again, in terms of heat pumps, watch this space. We have a commercial development partner in the heat pump space. So it's not likely to be a F2 labeled product, despite it'll have a F2 compressor inside it. And that's the comparable metrics to convention. So double the temperature lift or double the COP of incumbents for heat pump, which is incredibly exciting, especially sat on the back of a district heat network, maybe bringing 30 or 40 degrees up. With ammonia, we could be lifting that to 180, 200 degrees C with COP of 3 or 4. So thank you for the floor, everyone. Really appreciate it.
John, thank you very much indeed. I have no commercial connection. We share a common name, but nothing else. I went down to John's office and saw the system running a few weeks ago, and I was blown away. It's almost certainly a sea change in anything we can do in terms of power generation. I'd love to see it applied in anger. Right, just to do, we've had a number of points, and Alison, your presentations have solicited lots, as you've already seen, lots of really positive comments, both in terms of the data and accessibility which the BGS has provided, and in the initiatives, and that you've taken up on all and many fronts with regard to the 5 different working groups. I'm going to summarise things in a short while. I think we've covered the questions from Phil, and I think, John, you've been a bit too soon to finish to pick up any questions in particular. So what I will attempt to do, please add some questions for John and Fetu, and I will just do a rather quick summary of the event today, and then a quick update, if I may, on the National Geothermal Centre. So today we started off with Caroline from Cornwall, looking at the potential for deep drilling to specifically supply the massive power requirements for data centres, and twinning both what we see already in Cornwall and some of the work which has been done in the northeast of England as well. And that was continued with an in-depth dive from Steve MacDonald and Tibbet Lines, bringing together Durham County Council and Geothermal Wales Inc. to look at the potential for the UK. And one of the interesting things to come out of that, from a personal perspective, is the complementary, or if you like, the knock-on effects of investing in geothermal in terms of not only jobs and so on, but also saved carbon as well as saved power, and the knock-on effect that too has in terms of energy security for the UK and reducing our imports of methane and so on. We saw in a microcosm what can be done with potentially waste heat, or definitely waste heat, from some of the systems such as high-end computing systems. But of course, that relates back to what Caroline said in terms of the big power demand for data centers. They also have a big heat output. And so Alistair from Durham University, perhaps there's a bigger game here to play than we might otherwise have appreciated by using the heat from data centers powered by geothermal for things like social housing and so on. That was the first session, and then we moved into the second session opened by Phil Hassard from Robert Gordon in Aberdeen, looking at the drilling simulator and what they'd done to adapt that from originally an oil and gas system into geothermal, enabling folk to plan wells well ahead in terms of whether they're drilling hard rock or soft rock. Clearly a link through to what's happening in Forge in terms of potential for improving drilling rates, which after all is one of the real mega cost elements of any geothermal development. And not only in terms of drilling rate, but the way in that feeds back into tool design and ultimately subsequent tool development. From a national perspective, Alison Moynihan from the BGS gave us a comprehensive view of what they've achieved with what is now known as the UK Geothermal Platform, how the user-friendly front end, the Hexcel system, which allows individuals or organizations to literally drill down, not literally, sort of, if it's not literal, what is it? Anyway, drill down through the rock layers to understand what they might be able to deliver in terms of heat or power from the different layers and plan accordingly. And then an extremely comprehensive presentation from Anne, who's been bringing the industry coalition together, the trade body, demonstrating how interesting that has grown, doubled in the last couple of months or so, and with the 5 working groups which have been set up for that size of the prize business model, technical data, regulation and delivery frameworks, and integration with infrastructure. And then we heard from John, I nearly called you John Fetu then, John Fenton with Fetu, the alternative but similarly performing system to the steam turbine with a much more higher Carnot efficiency than typical heat engines, and matching that which you might see from a multi-million pound high-end steam turbine at around 60%, and in particular challenging the perception that you need 100 degrees or so of temperature difference between your input and exhaust systems to generate anything like a sensible amount of electricity. Moreover, he showed us the access to the H2P website, which allows folk to have a play, and we'll certainly be doing that. John, as I mentioned in an email to you over the weekend, I've now got a student compiling data which you will input into your system if we may. Now, what have I missed? I'm not sure I've missed anything there. We'll copy all the questions and all the comments. We'll make a compilation of those. There will be a recording that Lizzie and co have been doing. Right, just to finish off, if I may, and bring you up to date with the National Geothermal Centre. We've been putting in place all the, if you like, the governance structures over the past year. Number of things we've been supporting individual projects as well. One piece which has not been mentioned today, and we have at the National Geothermal Centre worked on quite a bit, is training and availability, and we will be running our first training program in collaboration with the Geological Society of London. That will run in February next year, and we're looking to develop the systems there in training. And probably the question that most of you have got in the back of your minds is, how is Charlotte Adams, who of course has been off work with a fairly major piece of surgery, I'm delighted to say that Charlotte will begin her journey back to work on Monday next. And I'm sure you'll like me to wish her well in that continued recovery and perhaps re-emergence. Difficult time for us in the National Geothermal Centre, but re-emergence in the weeks and months to come. Have I missed anything, Lizzie?
No, thanks, John. I think you've summed it up really well. Thank you very much. And thank you, just a big thank you to all of the speakers for your time and excellent presentations, and John for you chairing, and also for the interaction in the chat. It's great to see such activity. It's pretty exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. So huge thanks to all the 60 odd people that joined in. Without you, we're nothing. So have a good week and see you soon.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Right. Cheerio, anybody who's left. And thanks again. Bye now.